L'chaim, l'chaim, with Yontif. I was asked to speak in English, and with Erz gehert the Sicha, we just heard the Sicha, that when you come to a place, you have to go according to the Minhag HaMokim. The Minhag HaMokim, the Rebbe fliegt the Chalmo reden in Yiddish. The Rebbe hat mehr gewähnt in Yiddish, aber als wie so da Sach Zuhörer, was bei sie in der Loschen von Englisch mehr move the far wird man reden auf English. Yud Daled Kislev is a yontif beyond the proportion that we can understand. And if we truly focused and meditated on the message of Yud Daled Kislev, we would really be in a different place. And it's Pashat Balabatash reason. It doesn't even have to be a Chassidish reason. Alachas Kama Vechom, if it's a Chassidish reason. Yud Daled Kislev, the Rebbe himself described it as the day of his kashrus. As you see in the statement that it says here, das der Tag was mit mir verbunden mit euch und ihr mit mir und euch mit mir. It's a day of connection. So we have to think a moment about the inyan of his kashrus. First of all, that whole Farbrengen, the way it came about, was supposed to be B'Srusa del Tata. And Lepeo, even though Friday night the Elter Chassidim went in and they gave a bracha, but the Rebbe, after the davening, didn't indicate that there will be a Farbrengen. B'chlal, those that remember, if it wasn't Shabbos Mevarchim, and if the Rebbe didn't, in the later years, the Rebbe would say the Rashi to Rabbi Yosef Oldman, so how did you know if there was a Farbrengen or not? So there was a very clear siman. If after the davening, the Rebbe would collect the Sfarim that he had on his stender, and be ready to go, so you knew that the Gabbai is not going to announce Mincha, because Mincha will be after the Farbrengen. But if the Rebbe didn't collect this for him, and he stood relaxed by his stender, so he was waiting for the Achroz of Mincha. That's the way the Seder was. But when it came to Yud Daled Kislev, hat man nicht gewusst. If you give a look in Teres Menachem, it says that the Rebbe called the Mashbak to come in. That Mashbak, Mishabas Bakedesh, was my father, because it was before his chasna. So he wasn't yet a Chavara Maskirus. That happened after his chasna when Rabbi Chodakov called him in and said that they're asking to be a Chavara Maskirus. So he was a Meshamash Bakedesh. And the Rebbe told him to take his becher and the wine and to take it into the Zal, where the Rebbe would Farbreng, and to sit down by that table, by the table where the Rebbe would Farbreng. And he even said that he should make Kiddush and he should wait there. My father did that. It was not a very big olam yet. There was a big olam, but not a very big olam. Rabbi Shem Tov was there. We're still going to hear from him because he was by that Farbrengen. And then the Rebbe came out. And the Rebbe made Kiddush, and the Rebbe told everybody that they should make Kiddush and say L'chaim. So we have to think about his kashrus. And the his kashrus is a two-way street. What I want to talk about tonight is the iskashrus that the Rebbe has to us. And K'mayim Aponim El Ponim, that has to call out from us the iskashrus that we have to the Rebbe. The iskashrus that the Rebbe has to us, actually, in that first sicha from that Farbrengen, the Rebbe began to speak about the tsar that a neshama has when it has to go out of his comfort zone, of the Eitzer HaNeshamis, and to descend into a body, and to be in Olam Hazeh. The Rebbe describes it in great detail. And nevertheless, because this is the Ratzon of the Eibishter, and that the promise that Yerida Zut Tzerech Aliyah, so b'meila, the Neshama does it. But if you think about that Sicha, I venture to say that that Sicha was expressing the Rebbe's descent from his high plane to be involved with us. Just as a neshama has to descend from the high plane, me'igra rama lebira amikta, to be involved in our gufa gashmi and to be engaged in the gashmis, for the Rebbe to leave the realm where he is and to be able to be misasik with us, I chas v'shalom don't want to call it a yerida, but it is to a certain extent. As the Rebbe once said, there was a Farbrengen in Tov Shalamed Gimel, Erev Lag Ba'emer, and there was a very big parade that was planned. And the Rebbe used to come out to the Lag Ba'emer parade when it was on a Sunday. And that year, the Rebbe announced that he was not going to come out mitzat sibis. There were several sibis why the Rebbe didn't come out. But by that Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke with a lot of tsar, and the Rebbe said that mitzat tivoi, he wants to be alone in a room with his Sfarim and not have to deal with anybody. And that is the realm where he lives. So for the Rebbe to take on the Rabbisteve, Begashmis, as I said before, from a Balabatische perspective, it's Poshet Yetze Migidrei. And the Rebbe was miskashed himself to us in an unbelievable way. And Sai the Neshama, Sai the Nefesh, Sai the Ruach, and the Echai and the Chide, the Rebbe Tzchibi gegeben, gave himself over entirely to Chassidim. And when you think about that level of hiskashrus, of how the Rebbe thinks about us, and the Rebbe nurtured us, and the Rebbe takes care of us, and the Rebbe gives us, and as it was mentioned before, the Rebbe schenkt uns, it should awaken within us a reciprocal ave and chiba to the Rebbe, at least ma'at mezein. I want to share with you also a little story that many of you might know, but I heard it for the first time 3 years ago. And it's a story that I heard from my father, that it was in the early years of the Nesias. This is after he became a masked. He got married Taken Toshin Yud Daled that year, from for the same year of that Yud Daled Kislev. And the Rebbe began to tell him a story. And he said that he heard from the Shver, from the Friedrich Rebbe, a certain Hanhoge that happened by the Rebbe Rashab. And that Hanhoge was that the Rebbe Rashab had in his desk drawer, letters from Chassidim that he received over a period of time. And these are letters that he obviously read, but he kept them in this drawer. And the Friedrich Rebbe tells the Rebbe that Mizman Lizman, he saw that the Rebbe Rashab would open up that shiflod, and he would take out a letter, deliberately look for a particular letter, and take it out and read it, and focus on that letter. And the Friedrich Rebbe tells the Rebbe that it was a pella by him. The Rebbe Rashab is Hazei Farnumen, and he probably read the letter before. So Vasip Samol Mitten Tog, he opens up the shiflod, he opens up the drawer, the desk drawer, and starts reading this letter. So the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe that when he senses a cloud hanging over one of his chassidim, one of his mikasharim, so what he does is he opens up the drawer, takes out a letter that particular chassid sent to him, and he focuses on him, and he's mispal on him until the cloud disappears. The chassid doesn't even know that there's a cloud, and he doesn't even know that it disappeared. And the Rebbe continues the story to my father, and he says that he saw exactly the same hanhoge by the Friedrich Rebbe. That Mizman Lizman, he would open up the shiflod, the drawer, and he would look at letters of chassidim, a particular letter from years before. And the Rebbe finishes the story, therefore I'm going to ask you to do something. And that is, from all the letters that I receive that comes to me, so I'm going to give you the name and the address of the person that wrote the letter, the name, Shmei V'Shem Mimoy, and you should make index cards. And these index cards should go into these little boxes. People today don't know what it is because today everything is computerized, but there were little boxes with index cards, and it should be according to the alphabetical, the Aleph Beis Yossi, and it should be next to the Rebbe. And when one box fills up, he should fill up another box. And this one went on for many, many years. And these boxes of envelopes were always stationed. They were always sitting right next to the Rebbe. Wherever the Rebbe was in his room, these boxes were there. We can draw from that many, many things. But the fact is that, first of all, if the Rebbe said about the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab, that when they sensed the cloud on one of their Mikosharim and Chassidim, that they would look at the name V'Shem Imoy, so we don't need more of an imagination to understand that that's what the Rebbe wanted, so that he should feel the Chassidim next to him all the time. But there's another thing here. And the other thing is something which is unique to Der Hashvi'i, that the entire generation is the Rebbe's generation. And the kesher that the Rebbe has with everybody that wrote him, it wasn't just from Chassidim Ukosharim that wrote to him, that he had these letters connected to him, but it was everyone, any person, man, woman, or child that wrote to the Rebbe, the names had to be next to him. So if you think about that kind of iskashrus that the Rebbe has to his bnei dor, to his chassidim, in such an unbelievable way, it has to call out from us that kind of love, ava v'chiba, to be connected to the Rebbe. This is pashat in a balabatische way. It's not even in a chassidish way. So when it comes Yud Daled Kislev, which Yud Daled Kislev is the Chag HaYiskashrus, And it's a yontiv that the Rebbe himself said that der Tag hat mir mikashe gewem mit eich. Is Allah's kame vekamas auf azat Tag darf der Gefühl sein, Gott a starker wie alle andere Tag von Jahr. And I just want to say that the kind of iskashrus was man sich von uns is noch hecher from Mesiras Nefesh. The Rebbe once said, it was Shabbos after Chavav Tov Shel Amud Daled, that wir können kommen zu Yidden und sagen Mesiras Nefesh. Sagt yeah. Mesiras Ratzon, zeis lei. To give away his desire for the Eibishter that he's not ready to do. What we have to realize when it comes to his kashrus, of course we're ready to go on Mesiras Nefesh, we're ready to go on Shlichus, we're ready to go in fire and water for the Rebbe. But what the Rebbe meant for uns is Mesiras Ratzon, that we have to surrender our desires for the desire of the Rebbe. That's called his kashrus. Mir gibt sich über den Ganzen zu was the Rebbe will. Just want to say one more nekuda because I'm not someone from long speeches. That Bechlal, we stand in Heisedus today, and the Heisedus is Yud Daled Kislev, Tishim Ve'echad. There's the Heisedus of Shnas HaShivim, of Yud Shvat. So it's all connected. Now I want to speak that the Heisedus has to come from Chassidim. Just to share with you one point about Yud Aleph Nisan, Tashel Lamed Beis, because it was Shnas HaShivim. So Bechlal, that year started in Tashel Lamed Aleph with a Farbrengen. That Farbrengen was what we call a spontaneous Farbrengen. Afalpi, we knew that the Farbrengen 24 hours before, but it wasn't a scheduled Farbrengen the way the big Farbrengens were scheduled. And the Rebbe came into the Farbrengen, the Bachrim from Australia, the Shluchim came back that day, the second Kvutza. And the Rebbe said, Yemol the Maimer Mefursim B'yem Ashtei Asar Yem, which is a Yesedus Dike Maimer, about his Kashrus Take. And there was a Yesedus by the Chassidim in Meshach the year to make something special out of Yud Aleph Nisan. And the entire year, by every Chassidish Farbrengen, by every Mesiba, by every event, the Elam was being me'eder that Medaf Kumen Zum Rebbe auf Yud Aleph Nisan. Yud Aleph Nisan that year fell out on a Sunday, and it is before Pesach, but there was a huge Yisedus, und es ist angekommen a mamish a gewaltige Greise Kol. Sehr a Greise Kol is angekommen auf jenem Yud Aleph Nisan, at that Yud Aleph Nisan. And, of course, there was a Yontif Dike Avira in 770, starting already with Friday night. Then Shabbos is given the Farbrengen, and with the Maimer. And then after at that Motzei Shabbos, there were Rikudim and Farbrengen in 770. The Elam was a very, very big Sederus. I'm not going into the details of the Farbrengens, because the Farbrengens itself, with Rebbe explained the Psukim and Bechlal that year. Even on Pesach, the first days there were Farbrengens, and the Rebbe explained every Farbrengen another pasuk of Kapitel Ayin Aleph. But I want to speak about his Sederus. The his Sederus was very, very strong. There's even a picture of the Rebbe coming into 770 Sunday afternoon. The Rebbe went to the library because there were certain matonis that were brought and they put it in the library, and the Rebbe went to see these matonis, and then the Rebbe was going to mention Yenem Tog. There's a lot of history of that day. But when the Rebbe came back into 770, the Bachrim were dancing in the Zal. And the Rebbe at the Knis of 770 turned to them with a smile and was ma'eded very strong that they should continue dancing. So you saw the Simcha by the Rebbe. Then came the big Farbrengen Yud Aleph Nisan at night, Sunday night. It was a huge Elam. And the Rebbe spoke about the Sichos and Maimorim. There was a famous Maimer then. And after the Maimer, they began to sing again, B'cha Hashem Chasisi. There's a videotape of it, but the videotape doesn't really do justice. Because at that point, the Elam is reingegangen in a meredike Yisedus. A sei Yisedus, the ganze Elam hat sich aufgestellt, and everybody put their hand on the shoulder of the one, as the Baal Shem Tov's Maise, in front of them, und mit getanzt paschit in a gewaltige Weg. Aber was sie gewähnt, sehr begolui, what was very, very noticeable then, is that the Rebbe began to look at each and every person by the Farbrengen in 770. And he started with the Shura on the right of him, and once he finished looking at that row, he went to the next row, until he went all the way up to the pyramids, and then he went to the left. And the more he was looking and nodding to the Elam, the more the Hisaidus. That nigun must have lasted about a half hour, 45 minutes. It was mamish an unbelievable Hisaidus. In 770 at that time, you could feel it. And after that nigun, the Rebbe said, as I waited for this Hisaidus. So in other words, the whole Hisaidus that happened the whole year, the Rebbe was waiting that it should reach its peak. And then the Rebbe launched the inyan of the Ayin Aleph Meisdes. And that's when the Rebbe said that you can do it anyway with the man of the year, and Ibn Zeramen, Shizramen Shagansyar. But L'Peil, the Rebbe launched the Ayin Aleph Meisdes. Now you have to understand, Ayin Aleph Meisdes today is something that happens overnight. But in those days, in Tov Shel Lamed Beis, to say to Lubavitch to start Ayin Aleph Meisdes was almost like Kriyas Yamsuf. And L'Peil up in his Giton, and the Yor Nochdor of the Rebbe Gizok, the Rebbe said that if you were successful in Ayin Aleph Meisdes one year, you can do Ayin Beis Meisdes this coming year. So what am I saying here is that, of course, the Rebbe could be me'eded us, and the Rebbe is me'eded us to do what we need to do. But the Rebbe wart as es soll sein as Russe del Tate. Because that's the uniqueness of Deir Hashvi'i. The uniqueness of Deir Hashvi'i is that the Rebbe will us Welt allein soll scheinen lakus. The Rebbe guides us, he leads us, but he wants that we ourselves should come to that recognition. When you look Bechlal, even on the Miftzayim, when it came in Lamed Daled that the Rebbe introduced the Miftzayim, even the tanks that came Yisrusa del Tata. But it was because they saw the koch of the Rebbe. And in fact, everybody remembers the Sicha Parshas Nasi, the third Sicha when the Rebbe cried, and when he spoke the words V'hifla Hashem es Malkeischa, the Vilda Veg, because there were a lot of things that happened one after another then. And the Rebbe wanted that the Miftzayim should be in a Vilda way, but he didn't specify how. And it was that night that the Bachrim had a Sederus, and they said we have to rent a truck, and we have to go out into the street to put on tefillin with people. And that Sederus led to a whole revolution, which was known as the revolution of the mitzvah tanks. The Rebbe could have given direction directly exactly how we should do it. So the only thing is that's the uniqueness of our der. The Rebbe wants that mir allein sollen sich kommen zum Seichel, that we should understand that we have to have these Sederus. So b'meila, when it comes, a yontif like Yud Daled Kislev, when we reflect and meditate on his kashrus, we have to have a deep Hisaidus, a deep awakening, and a Ava v'chiba to the Rebbe, und sich übergeben im Ganzen, und der Rebbe soll Tage helfen, aber soll sich sehen mit dem Rebbe, bepeil mamish lamata masora tvachim, und soll durchführen, alles was soll durchführen, be'efun, tev hanida v'nigle, bepeil mamish l'chaim.